Just fucking do it. Subscribe now.
I know most of you don't want to get up and present your signature deal. And most of your presentation skills, I wouldn't want to get up either. But that's the only way you get better. I just left one that, it was painful. I almost started to cry just now in that other room. I had to get up and leave because it's beyond your wildest imagination how fucked up. 1, presentation skills. 2, presentation skills. 3, it's obvious that nobody's practiced that particular case. And 4, the guy, can't talk. When you combine all those, it's not very, tenor. It's not, So, but that's part of the reason. You don't die from this. You might think you're going to die from it, but you don't. Whereas Jessica's a bulldog fucking bitch, Viking bitch. She was born to do this shit, But you don't have to be, born to be a Viking, a 6'2" Viking bitch to do this. Okay, so what's the deal? This is the nursing home, North Carolina, South Carolina?
What we're not understanding is the purchase price is $3.5 million. He's paying $4.2. That's fine, EBITDA. But he got an SBA loan for 75%. The sellers...
Commercial debt.
Exactly. The sellers are giving him a $1.15 million take back, so seller financing. But then he also raised $1.05 million from an investor group and gave them 20%.
So he has an equity injection.
So by closing, he owns 80%.
Yeah, it's overfinanced. So what about overfinance? Don't you understand?
No, also the bank gave him a 24-month holding period where he couldn't use the funds of the company to pay any subordinate loans or
I understand. I wouldn't have done that deal. Okay. You don't want to have your hands tied for 2 years. But that's what, getting back to the 80s mentality, you got to run the business a year or 2 before we trust you.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's the whole idea. When you come with your dream team, that's normally not an issue.
Okay.
Normally not an issue. But that vis-a-vis how we do things, that dog wouldn't hunt. Mm-hmm. Only bad things can happen when you can't touch the cash for 2 years. And that's why but that's obviously we wouldn't go forward based on our model. We wouldn't go forward and say thank you very much and just tell the banker, whoever the commercial debt provider is, I'm sorry, we don't do that. Now, pension funds that do commercial debt loans very often want you to run the business for a year or 2, the pension funds. But the private equity guys that are on your board, they're going to normally have a board seat. And so, normally private equity funds are going to require board meetings at least once a quarter and maybe once a month. And so they're going to be there for all the voting, and they're going to be there for all the arguments back and forth. And normally the private equity, although I don't think it says it in that case, have a golden vote. So in other words, they may only be 1 member on the board, and there's 8 other members, but they can outvote the 8 members. When private equity put up the money, either directly or indirectly, they always control the deal. Always.
So they're the last people you want to go to?
Last. Now, although Peter from Hungary, the hospital magnate now, he got 2 private investors, truly angels. And when I said the first deal he did was the best deal I've seen in 20 years, it was. Then he, right on top of it, he did another one, right? And it's the second best deal I've seen in 25 years. Because the private investors didn't take board seats, didn't take control, didn't have a golden vote. They had nothing. And for one guy put up €1 million, he got 6% of the holding company. And the guy that came up and put up $2 million on top of him 6 months later, he got 8%. So he got enough equity, €3 million, to do his deals and only give up 14% of the company. And that's
non-controlling shares.
None. That's outrageously good for him.
Yeah.
And you've seen him on the webinars. Nothing against you, Peter. He's a little mousy guy. he wouldn't say shit if it was in his mouth. Normally they're going to take control. When I ran my fund back in the 90s and the early 2000s, I was called a bottom feeder. I would suck the guts out of the people lying dead. They hadn't floated to the top yet. And they couldn't take a piss without me knowing about it and approving it. And they used to call me an angel. An angel with horns. Big. So that's a big red flag.
When you read all the documents, it said the bank's financing 75%.
Mm-hmm.
I see they only financing 33% in the numbers.
Well,
it says here 1.2 million bank senior debt. It says the VTB is 1.1.
Well, but I think that's what the company currently had in debt.
This is here?
Yeah, I think. No? I don't
That's how it equals a 3.6 purchase price.
Sources of funds for acquisition. Oh, yeah, then I don't know.
It doesn't match. So
yeah, because it says 75% SBA loan, right?
Why wouldn't they want to be in on the board or whatnot? The people who...
Oh, you mean these two investors I just told you about?
Yeah.
Because they're not real investors. They are real angels.
They got money.
They got
Yeah,
money,
that's angel finance.
and they heard about this little Nebish rolling up, and his chairman is a world-class guy. And they said, well, we'll see. I used to say, I'll see ants fuck for 50 million. In other words, 50 million was no money to me at one point in my life. To these guys, a million's not any money to them. I'll take a punt in this country. We'll take a punt on the guy for $1 million. Mm-hmm. Now, most people wouldn't take a punt for $1 million because $1 million's, a meaningful amount of money. But then when the first punter did it, then the second punter saw that the first punter did it, and he said, well, next time they need some cash. And in his particular case, and because property's involved, real estate, the cash flow hardly ever meets debt service because the valuation of the property is normally so high. And so in this particular case, on these first 4 hospitals, they were short roughly 2.75 million euros. One guy put up $1 million, one guy put up $2 million, and then they overfinanced even the angel investors, and they were able to take money out for the board and for Peter's about a new car. And by the time his Lexus, which not demeaning Lexus cars, but by the time Lexus got there, apparently he already figured out that wasn't enough of a car. So then he bought the Mercedes
MLS military style, like it's boxy.
He bought an expensive Mercedes.
MLS.
Yeah, he bought because but normally it's unless you get a guy or a gal or an entity that's willing to invest money, and in this particular case, they were investing in the team. They were investing in the team, and that's notwithstanding he did it without a team. It's normally what sells the people or gives them the incentive or motivation or both to loan to you, because if they look at your track record, when you put your executive summary together and you put your profiles together, your profile has normally nothing if it's healthcare. Normally nothing, and Jessica's the antithesis of that because her profile actually blends.
I found when you retain a management company, you can use their profile.
Yeah.
It's just like, they're manager, I have nothing to do with it, so why am I doing anything? I'm just, I'm on the side.
Yeah.
I felt that was a good offset.
Yeah.
Then at some point, are we
But whether it'll work when you got 500 million, they're going to want somebody, not just because you can't hold a management company accountable. A bank cannot hold a management company accountable. Yeah. A bank can hold directors accountable. Mm-hmm. But it gets started. It was a great deal. You did a good deal. It was a good deal.
At some point, are we going to cover the actual consolidation process?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But simply speaking, we don't beat it to death. Simply speaking, we're using the hub and spoke, no more than 2-3 hours away from wherever we started, okay? And we are consolidating all the pencils, all the insurance, all the cars, all the health care for those 7 or 8 or 10 that are at the end of the spoke. And you know, with 10 employees, you're paying X. With 100 employees, you're not paying 10X. You're paying a fraction thereof because you're getting different kind of policies.
Yeah, because we were speaking, like,
Yeah.
it's I find the acquisition part is the easy part, but the consolidation.
Running them is a
like
bitch.
at the end of the roll-up is what I want to understand.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about the end. Okay, now we've got
Like, how do you...
4.5 years later, we've got 50 of these pieces of shit. What do we do? Okay, we're going to discuss that. Okay, we're going to discuss that. And and it may not be an industry giant. It may be a PE firm, because PE firms are buying stuff from kids today. They rolled them up at 4, 5, 6 times EBITDA. They're paying 12, 14, 15
We were
because
talking about that last night.
yeah, because the private equity don't want to go through all the shit, and they're willing to double your money.
So if you're paying like 11 or 12, 13 times with the real estate, will that stop you from selling to private equity?
No, and they may ask you to hive the real estate off,
Yeah.
do a lease back, and where they don't want the real estate, they just want the assets, and then they're continuing those assets that you gathered up are now paying you for the buildings or buildings that you currently own.
Passive.
Correct.
You just have to make sure that the sale price of the opco, we'll call it, covers the loan and some
Correct.
AU. And then at that point, the real estate would be free and clear of any liens.
Yeah.
Now here's a question. So I was looking at a Durham deal. This is not part of what we're doing.
The Durham deal?
I was looking at a Durham deal in Salt
Durham
Lake.
meaning dermatology?
Dermatology, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. It was, the DSCR was like 2.5. It was seller finance 80% and bank finance 20%. But the EBITDA multiple on what I was on the deal was 22x. Now, a fully consolidated dermatology, locations are private equities buying them about 21x right now. Although the DSCR ratio is 2.5 to 3 on this, and I'm buying it at 22x, that's still a bad deal, right?
Yeah.
No matter what 100-year seller financing we can structure.
Yeah, I mean, if you got it for 100-year seller finance, then it wouldn't be a bad deal. Like, they're still talking about your 25 years, which, I mean, I understand perfectly, but if you don't ask, you don't get. And because of the, I don't know if it's a quirk in the Canadian banking law, but I mean, the fact that it's tied to a more real estate type loan, and 25 years is not unusual for property.
I didn't think it was.
No, it isn't.
When they asked for 20, I kind of got upset. You should give me 30, but they stopped doing that now. But they do a max of 25 now.
Yeah, well, that's good. That makes our numbers work perfectly. So, but getting back to, you still have to leave. You want something that you can get a multiple, an arbitrage off of.